Are you going to count us in?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I'll just go then. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of I'm No Expert, the podcast about everything and nothing. I am Jason. I am here as always with Ben. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to you. Good afternoon.
Did I bring it? I was trying to bring it a little bit.
You brought it.
Since I've been kind of flat on our last few other podcasts.
Must be the bourbon in the coffee.
Well, we moved this to Wednesday because I had this theory that I was out of energy by the time we hit Thursday. So let's see if it makes any difference.
Already, it does.
Perfect.
So actually, this is a good. So here we go. No. Okay, I'm stuttering, and I'm trying to. It just dawned on me. Something dawned on me.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That you hypothesizing that Wednesday would be a better day for energy. And here
Am
we
I
are.
using my own magic?
Yeah, we're sort of we're using our own magic. Not only that, but we won't know. We won't know. We would never have known until we tried. And now we are trying. It's meta, I guess. I don't know. That was maybe weak. But point being, we got a few things we want to touch on today around experiential learning and experience being the best teacher. But I think also, you don't really know something until you try it. It's like what we tell our kids all the time, right? You can't tell me you hate that food because I know for a fact you've never tried it. So you got to try it first. It's the old green eggs and ham thing.
It's funny though, because I feel like the whole premise of this is adults may tell their children that, but then they don't apply it to themselves.
And yeah,
so here we are.
And the first thing on the list, actually, the first two things on the list, I think are.
Are we just going to go big?
Well, we don't have to. No, we don't. No, we don't have to. But let's. Yeah, let's talk
just
about
boom out of the gate.
Green eggs and ham. It's been such a fun story to tell my kid, my 4-year-old, and he's wanted it a number of nights in a row because I can come back to it. It's such an easy way to go. Well, it's just like green eggs and ham. You won't know until you try it. He liked it, right? He liked it when he tried it. It's a great anchor, especially for this age. And what I've discovered, and I don't know if it's because of this story, but I've discovered that he is more willing to try something. And I think maybe in his head, he's thinking like, well, I might be missing out on it.
He might be. That's the right thought process.
It is.
Don't knock it till you try it.
Don't knock it till you try it. Yeah. Skydiving was the one that came to your mind. Well, go ahead. You dive right in.
No, I'm just adding what was it? Don't knock it till you try it. Oh, I'm adding a note that says, what would you not try?
Oh.
Just to be fair.
Yeah. No, okay. Well, we can come around to that.
I feel like there are going to be things on that list. I've also sort of realized, I don't know if this podcast is just an excuse for me to gripe about things that annoy me.
It is for most people.
It could be.
Wasn't that why most
maybe people... that's the purpose of this whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, this, on one hand, this is a topic that annoys me because there's a lot of it going on these days where people are really mad at things or have strong opinions about things that they've never tried. And I do that from time to time. I'm a person too, but this is really something that I try to live by. And as we just talked about, this is something we try to instill in our children. And green eggs and ham, I'm glad you brought that up because it's also really the quintessential don't knock it before you try it children's story.
Yep.
And that sort of, I think, goes back to how fundamental this is as a part of human experience. So skydiving, I don't know. This is very tangential, but the other day I was driving home and thinking about random things, as I often do, that turn into podcast topics. And so for previous to actually going skydiving, I had always wanted to try it because I like to challenge myself. And I also sort of like to be a master of my person and know that I can put myself in a situation and that I'll be able to handle it. it's also something that other people are like, I would never do that. And I want to be the guy that's like, I would. So I just started thinking about skydiving, but I did not want to go tandem skydiving. And that's totally fine if that's what you want to do or what you've done. I'm not judging it. But for me, I did not want to be a passenger, right? I wanted to fly that plane. That's sort of a mixed metaphor. But yeah, I wanted to stand there on the precipice and look down 15,000 feet or whatever it is and be like, of my own volition, I will decide to take one more step and fling myself into space and hurtle towards the earth. And so, yeah, I was not interested in tandem, but I sort of feel like that's, to put it in a food context, if there's some food you haven't tried and you have somebody else try it for you, I don't know. It's a little bit in between.
But. No, I think it's tough to find a food comparison to going tandem versus going solo.
Right. And I mean, okay, so that's kind of the lead up, but I think that also made me realize that there is no way to fully understand what it is to fall out of an airplane without doing it yourself. You can learn about it, you can read about it, you can watch videos, but you can't truly understand something without trying it yourself. And this is kind of the entire premise of the show.
That is the premise. I mean, that's what got us into this is exactly that point. Like, you can research a thing, and we're going to talk about, I think it's important for the listener to know, like, sometimes we do preparation for these episodes because we want to be somewhat organized. In this one, we made a list of the topics that we wanted to cover, and one of them is guns and legislation. So I think it's important that the listener know what we're trying to get towards here is people legislating against things that they have no experience in. Maybe I've never handled or dabbled in. It's like banning a food that you've never tasted,
or a book you've never read,
or a book you've never read, or a type of music that you've never actually listened to. So that I think is what intrigued me a lot about approaching this topic. And so you've touched on, a couple things, and one is like you can never adequately explain the experience of jumping out of a plane to a person. I do not think that there are words, and I've done it, like we've talked about on this show. I was not like you. I didn't in my life think like I have to jump out of a plane. I was gifted.
That was not an aspiration.
Yeah, I was like gifted it by my brother, my Navy SEAL younger brother, and like I couldn't back out. He had paid for the lesson, paid for the jump, and I was never going to back out, and I was definitely pumped.
I was going to say, I don't think the money was the biggest drive.
No, it was the pride. It was definitely the pride. Excuse me, the pride. But you can't. There are no words. There are no words for that experience.
And everyone's experience of it is different too. So
yeah, is that
true for everything else?
I think it's one of those things that I experienced, and if it comes up in conversation with someone, they're like, well, I don't know if I ever could do it. I tell them, I think you should do it. It's safe. There's a safe way to do it. And it's life-changing. And I swallowed a bug.
Maybe it's because you've already had a liter of water and you have one more to go.
I think it might be that.
So where do you want to jump in? Jump out? Skydiving?
Yeah. We talked about gun legislation, like something that we want to lead up to.
All right. Yeah. That's good. I think we'll take the smallest one first.
Take the smallest one first. Well, okay. Well, let's start at another one that we both have experience in.
No, I'm ready to do guns.
You are? Okay, let's do guns.
Yeah. I feel like this one is easy, actually. And we're not talking about whether firearms should be legislated or not. But I think, unfortunately, this always breaks down into a political thing. I also don't really think it should be political. I'm not political about it. I would say for myself, politically, I'm definitely left-leaning, but close to center, which I am with almost everything, because at least for me, the balance is in the middle. Like, no one's always right or always wrong. there are two sides of an argument. The place where those things functionally come together is somewhere, not dead center, but, in the middle. So it's usually Democrats, I would maybe always, proposing gun legislation and Republicans getting upset about it. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I'd say that's how it leans.
If I am to generalize.
Yeah, if you're going to generalize, I'd say that's about correct.
Generally true. I'm hedging a lot here because I know this is a hot button topic. But what is always very apparent to me is when you have a senator or somebody standing up and talking about gun legislation, it is extremely clear they don't have the first clue about firearms. They have no experience with them, and you can just tell by how they talk about them, or the incorrect things that they say. And then the other party, the right, is obviously going to point out how dumb that person sounds because they don't know what they're talking about. So, Democrats, get your act together. Don't be dumb.
Yeah.
And then, maybe I didn't have a B. I just have an A. Don't be dumb. Don't be obviously incompetent in front of a bunch of people when you're trying to pass laws about it. And then, I don't know, has it ever been tried where somebody who's actually knowledgeable is talking about these things in a legislative sense? I don't know. I feel like you can't have that conversation intelligently without both people understanding the topic, right?
So the next, not to leap ahead, but I do need to draw this comparison now while it's in my head. But the next point on our list was drugs, and that's not to say that in order for politicians to legislate against the use of heroin, they need to have tried heroin.
No, that is exactly what I'm saying.
And again, I'm not trying to belittle.
That's not what Ben's saying. That's what I'm saying.
That's what Jason's saying.
Yeah.
But in the case of guns, it's a different story. You can safely go to a range, use these things. They are fairly easily accessible to have some experience with. And so, yeah, at the very least, understand the thing that you were trying to legislate against or control. And it does become politicized. And I don't think we have to get into the weeds on where you stand on it, but I don't know. I also don't know that if we were to get these Democrats who have no experience with guns onto a range so that they could fire them, I don't know that would necessarily change their mind. It would make them look a little less. It may
even have the opposite effect. It may solidify their opinion, which is fine. But I think my point is you can't have an intelligent conversation about something when you were totally ignorant.
Yeah. I want to go a step further, and I want to go a step further because I think in this topic, you have to go back to the origins of the Second Amendment and to the motivation behind including the Second Amendment in the Constitution. So it's not just about, you've got to understand the tool or the weapon, the thing itself you're legislating against, but I think you have to understand the mindset of those who wrote this amendment into the Constitution. So what was
the historical context?
Yeah, the historical context. And in that instance, it was, we recognize that there is such thing as tyranny and tyrannical governments and authoritarianism and those who in power who try to control the rest of us
in recent history.
And therefore we want to make sure that the people who elect a government or who are controlled by a government or governed by a government have some method of defense against authoritarianism, against tyranny. And at the time, a lot of the arguments that I see against, say, an AR-15, semi-automatic assault rifle, is that when the Second Amendment was written, all we had then were muskets. And it took however long, 20 seconds to reload. But I find that there's some logical fallacies there. I think the main one is that weapon at the time was pretty much on par with what the tyrannical government had. So you would have to sort of extend that to today. And the truth is that the public has far inferior weapons that we have access to compared to the government that this amendment is supposed to protect us against, potentially. So if anything, like, we should probably be allowed to get tanks and, I think, Apache helicopters.
Oh, yeah. I've always wanted one of those. Thank you for bringing up tanks. So there's actually a comedian named Steve Hofstetter, who I'm a big fan of. And he has this bit about like fixing gun control in 3 minutes. And it's funny. He's a comedian, right? He makes jokes. But one of his jokes is like, all these people talking about whether they can have guns or not don't understand how tanks work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's true.
So yeah, I mean, again, to a degree, there's some logical fallacy attached to that as well. But I think the point that you're making is times have changed, right? I don't know. I'm not sure where I stand on the Second Amendment. I said a minute ago that I am left leaning. I am also a gun owner. I have an AR-15. Well, I mean, like the argument where like if you just want guns, like fine. I feel like most people, okay, I'm generalizing here, where they're like staunchly pro-gun. It's just because you want them. I don't know. Like, do you really have those things because you're expecting to have to defend yourself against the government? Probably not. If we're being honest, like it's totally fine if you just like them and you want them and you enjoy them safely and responsibly. I think that's totally fine. Do we need more rules to protect the general public? Like, it seems that way. But now we're kind of off topic.
No, I don't think we are. And I guess I failed to sort of complete my thought.
And it's because I interrupted you.
No. I let my train go way off track. That I think that experience piece, understanding something, putting yourself as a politician legislating against guns, I think they lack I've ever walked in the shoes of a person who feels that they might need this right, that they might need to be armed for protection. And this is a generalization, but I think we can look at Congress and see a bunch of old white men, many of them who probably born into privilege and have never found themselves in a situation where they personally would need protection, a gun on them, or even sense, because they're a part of the system that is doing the controlling, be on that other side where, you're sort of helpless and looking at those trying to take your rights away. And the truth is there's a grand hypocrisy in all of them, because they're all protected by people with guns. Like, they all have Secret Service or personal protection, and those people are heavily armed. So I mean, that alone is just like the most brazen hypocrisy to all of them. I found, and I'm going to counterpoint to your generalization about gun owners just wanting guns and not necessarily wanting them because they're needing to protect themselves against a tyrannical government. And I was not a gun owner. I was never a gun owner until this past spring. And my father had given me the Sig Sauer because he wasn't using it anymore. And when this past, like, things kind of, when the poopy hit the fan, and I was like, I don't know what the future looks like, but I have a very vivid imagination, and I could see where, if everything sort of collapses, and we saw it with like toilet paper, we couldn't even keep toilet paper on the shelf, like food's next, and you're going, well, maybe it's not a bad idea. And I think a lot of people thought that same way. And so then I started exercising that right. And I was like, oh, it's just kind of cool to have a shotgun. I'd had a hunting rifle, and that was like, okay, cool. That's a tool. Then I got a shotgun. Then I built an AR-15, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun just owning this stuff. And then once you have these things that are your right to own, you become keenly aware of steps to take them from you, or to limit your access to the things that make those tools work. And at that moment, I think I became way more attuned to, no, this is a constitutional right for this very reason, to prevent you from taking these things from me. And history can point pretty clearly to fairly recent governments that have disarmed their people, and then everything went to heck. And, then we had to go into World War II to stop that same country, from sort of spreading their evil. And I don't think that's out of the realm of the possible. It's simply not out of the realm of the possible because it has happened, and it happens.
I'm not sure I would have said this a few years ago, but I do to some degree feel like we live in an age where normally I would be like, that would never, ever happen. I don't really feel that way anymore. I'm kind of like, I don't know. We live in a crazy world. But I think the sentiment that you express there as a gun owner, based on what you said, like you are now emotionally and practically because you have experience, and informationally because you have information, you're ready to have that discussion in a way that people who lack those other things are not able to. And so I think you were saying earlier that, these people proposing legislation who are not, A, not gun owners, and B, don't have any experience whatsoever with guns, like they I think by definition are not able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Not sympathize with, but empathize with people who are on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And so like for me too, right? I'm a gun owner. If somebody's like, well, what if you had to give up your, AR? I'm like, it makes me feel kind of funny. I don't really feel danger. I think it is an amazing piece of technology. I like to look at like how it's made and that sort of thing. I like to go to the range and shoot it. I like to practice and, try to achieve mastery. That's just something I do with other things as well. I'm not particularly worried that I'm going to have to use it to defend myself from the government. But when you're like, well, so give it to me. I'm like, I don't, but so this is where the discussion now starts. Now that we're on a level playing field, now we can talk about what should be done or what needs to be done and how to do it.
Yeah.
I don't have any answers to those things because that's a tough question, but
it's a tough question. And I don't think it's one that we're going to answer here. I think it's sort of enough to, I don't know, maybe it gets the listener thinking a little bit on it. I don't know where the listener stands on the notion of gun ownership or Second Amendment, but the other one that is somewhat similar. We wrote down, again, a very light topic, but abortion and rape, and the idea of male politicians legislating over a woman's body, just like the ability to have an abortion, like if it's after a rape. And I put those two together because I think that's one of those situations that comes up. And go ahead.
I'm sorry, go on.
Well, just the mere idea of men legislating a female body, particularly something like pregnancy, they will never ever know what it's like to carry like that person inside them. It almost to me feels like the responsible thing to do is for any male politician who cannot carry a child themselves to just go,
which is most of them.
Yeah, I'd say most of them.
Yeah,
is to go like this and like hands up and go, we're abdicating responsibility for the legislation of this. We're going to hand it over to those who have the best experience and can really speak to it. Because I feel like that's I don't, and I know that's not practical, probably not practical, but in my mind, it feels like that's the only thing that makes sense.
Consult with people who know what they're talking about,
like strongly. Anyway, that's a weird one for me. Like, how can you do that? How can you legislate against a thing that you will never have experience in?
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, so I mean, that's what our note said. It's not about the specific things that happen, but just the idea that men would feel the, I don't know what it is, moral authority or some other kind of authority to be the last word on what women should do with their bodies. Like, That I agree. That does not make sense to me.
No. And I
like if they want to be involved in the discussion, okay, maybe I'm not even sure how that's relevant. But yeah, it's just a weird position to take.
Even talking about it, I can the best I can do is try to imagine what a woman feels like, even when she's being like her body's being legislated by male politicians. I don't even know what that feels like. So I almost feel like I can't even really talk about it. Like I can't really talk about it with any sort of
Right. Why
authority.
would I talk about it?
Yeah. I almost say like whatever outrage is being expressed by women because their bodies are being legislated by men. I look at that and I go, I will never feel that, but I see you, and I'm gonna recognize that, and I'm gonna sort
And
of
I'm going to go mind my own business and deal with something that I know something
I'm
about.
just gonna be like, I got your back, girl. Like, I got your back, because maybe there'll come a time when the tables are turned, and I just want, what seems sensible to be done.
I mean, I wish I could remember some. There are definitely examples that come up every so often on the internet where it's like, oh, now men are saying that you can't legislate men's bodies.
Right. Right.
Can you think of anything?
No, well, I guess
like,
like imagine if all of a sudden women were like, men after this age have to have a vasectomy, or like if a male is convicted of like even a minor sexual harassment, like they have to have their balls chopped off, like and that was put forward by like some AOC or someone. Every male in America would be like, whoa,
you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah, whoa, you can't, and that's off the top of my head. That's probably terrible, like a terrible example, but it's just something that came to my head. Like if a woman said that should be the case, or men after 40 should have to have their,
right,
should not be able to procreate. Every man would be like, well, no, you can't. It's sort of similar. We would all have that visceral reaction for having our bodies like legislated to.
Right. I mean, I think the point is that like if you want to go looking for those examples, there are plenty of them. You know how to use Google. Yeah. But the root of it is like the government. Sorry, I'm always thinking about the downstream consequences. The government shouldn't be telling anybody what to do with their body.
That's true. Period.
I'm sure there are some exceptions. I don't know. I'm not thinking about them right now, but that kind of stuff, like, just stay out of it. Like, these are personal decisions. Like, why do we need that kind of involvement, whether you're a man or a woman? Like, I don't know. It's your deal.
Or identify as something else. I just want to throw that out there. Okay. I mean, I'm with you. I don't think the government should ever have any say in what we do with our bodies, and
that's the libertarian side of me.
That is, I like that. we put drugs on here, so we'll come back. We'll come back to that, right? Like, okay, you've said that possession of crack and meth and heroin is illegal. Doesn't mean that you have to have used those things to legislate against them, but I don't know, even that's like a slippery slope. And I find myself sometimes lying in bed at night going, man, I don't like, if someone wants to put that stuff in their body, I don't feel comfortable telling them that they cannot. I feel very comfortable taking a role and saying there's a lot of consequences. Let's educate.
Here's what you need to know.
Yeah.
Should you choose to do that.
Educate the hell out of people so that they don't make those choices, or explore what would drive someone to that point where they're doing that, and then see if we can fix all those things. But no, laws have never stopped a person from doing that thing. It's never stopped people from doing that.
Laws were never intended to. I mean, okay, so I want to keep coming back to the point that you need both information and experience to understand something.
Go on.
So on one hand, information is scientific and historically accurate.
Okay.
So in this country, drug legislation have been used as tools of social and moral control.
Sure.
They were never intended to help or protect people. And like, I mean, I'm not prepared to have that discussion right now, but if you look at the history of this, like, you can't argue with it.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, you can argue with anything, but the facts are not in your favor. So I mean, I think that's the other piece, particularly with drug legislation, is you need to understand why these things became laws.
Yeah.
And typically they were created to oppress minorities of different kinds.
That's true.
Or oppress certain social groups. Like there's never it's just never been about helping people.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I'm with you. It's we live in an interesting time where you're seeing an easing of laws against, marijuana, cannabis.
Right, which I mean, so yeah, change is possible. Like
Change is possible.
All of the things, I mean, what was that movie? That black and white movie about smoking pot turning you into a crazy
Reefer
murderer.
Madness.
Reefer Madness.
Yeah.
That was like the fact and thought of the day. And it was not it was just we know it is all wrong. It was propaganda. It's total garbage.
Let's backtrack. That was not the thought of the day. That was the propaganda used to seed the thought of the day. Yeah. And so people, there were plenty of people who looked at marijuana and thought those things without any experience with it for themselves. And then once they did, but then those who tried it, and you see this now, you start to see, and I don't know if this is accurate, but you see a lot of these cool like shows and movies looking at that time period. And there's this whole like subculture of people who were smoking weed, who were rolling joints and smoking weed in their apartments.
I mean, that's why they made the movie, is because they wanted to.
Yeah, but those people, like, that, and you watch these characters who have that first experience with it, and it changes their lives. They're like, I didn't go crazy. In fact, I had some really cool thoughts, and I had a really cool time. Like, this is
I did not murder anyone.
I did not. Right. And for some people, they would have done it and had a pretty terrible time. Like maybe they were paranoid and it just didn't work for them. And so they're like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. And they stopped using it. But I remember thinking back to when I was coaching young kids, like 12, 13, 14-year-olds, and like really getting to know them and their families well, and understanding what these kids are like up against, and sort of how we would have this like no alcohol policy for our soccer club. Like if you were caught using alcohol at any sort of soccer, you were just kicked off. And I thought a lot about how I could never with a straight face tell any of those kids, and I'm not going to be able to do it with my son. Don't use drugs. Like, don't smoke pot. I could never do that because I did it. And it's not a terrible thing. It's more just like, as a parent, you've got to look at your kids and go, it's almost inevitable. It is inevitable that they're going to try alcohol probably before they're 21. And it's almost inevitable that they are going to try something like cannabis before whatever age, is legal in your state. And so therefore, rather than avoiding that, or telling yourself a story,
lying to them,
just start having the conversation. And that's going to make that kid less fearful going into that experience, and probably more likely to share it with you. And it becomes a conversation, and they're able to do it from a place of like responsibility and intention, and not from a place of feeling like they are being subversive, which I think can be counteractive. So it's almost like you're steering, you're number one, you're acknowledging that a person's probably going to have this experience, and you can't lie to them and say that you didn't. You have to be honest with them and say, well, I tried it. It's different for everyone. You're probably going to try it. If you want to talk about it, ask me anything. I'll tell you anything you want. And then you just roll the J and you smoke it with them. Like, do you think that you will do that with your kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. That's actually the approach that my parents had. I mean, my mom was like, at a certain age, she's like, look, if you want to have a beer or something, like, you can do it at home.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to see what that's like. Or if you and your friends.
12, 13.
No, I don't think I was 12, but. I mean, I was allowed to try like beer and wine, and I tasted it when I was a kid, and I was like, this is the worst thing ever. Why would you put this in your mouth?
That's amazing.
And that was, that lasted for a while. And then I was like, well, I tried it enough times that I can get past that. But yeah, she was like, look, if you and your friends want to like party or something, like don't do it in secret, do it in a safe place.
And don't drive.
Where you like don't have to drive or whatever it is.
Right.
But just like don't be dumb.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And then I mean, I don't know if it's partly just my personality, but then I wasn't like, yeah, I want to sneak out and do things in secret in places that are dangerous. I was like,
like kids want to rebel. Like I think kids naturally want to sort of rebel against their parents. And that might be like a cultural societal thing, or that just might be something that kids have been doing forever. But around that age, like 12, 13, 14, they start to grow this like fierce independence. And I think why give them one more thing to rebel against you with in a way that could be very dangerous. So anyway, that's sort of off topic, but it's not because you can't, you tell a kid like, don't drink, it'll do this, don't smoke, it'll do this, but they need to find that out for themselves, and they're going to find that out for themselves. So and
then they're going to find out if you were lying about it or not.
Yeah.
Or if society was lying to them or not.
Yeah. Frame that first experience properly. And I think that it's going to be beneficial for everyone in the short term and the long term.
Do you know why the drinking age is 21 and not 18 like it is in every other country in the world that has drinking age laws?
Why did they change it?
So I found this out through a court order.
It was tied. The way that they imposed it was tied to federal funding. I know that.
So I'm actually just trying to figure out now why the federal government wanted to raise it. I am not clear on that, but the drinking age is a state law, which every state makes independently. Why does every single state have a 21-year-old age limit? It is because the federal government said we would withhold your highway and transportation funding if you do not raise the drinking age to 21.
Right. I mean, it's another absolute. I don't know why this hasn't changed. It's such a ridiculous thing that we do, and kids go to college as 17, 18-year-olds, and there is more alcohol there consumed probably in that first year of college for most kids than you will consume in ages like 50 to 90 in the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like, and it's nuts. And then you can vote at 18. You go to war at 18, but
if you can die for your country, you should be able to have a beer.
All those old tropes. It's all those old tropes and memes. It's just insanity to me that we still are in this place. But it's like it's willful ignorance is what it feels like to me. It's if we just keep the drinking age at 21, X, Y, and Z won't happen or will happen. And that's not the case at all. We just drive that culture of drinking, underage drinking, underground, where it becomes infinitely more dangerous.
Yeah.
I believe.
I mean, it's setting them up for failure.
It's setting them up for failure. Yeah. It's setting the whole system up for failure. We got a couple of these, things on the list. We're not going to get to all of them. Maybe we'll like throw them into the
Where's our time?
Episode.
Oh my gosh. We talked about guns for way too long.
We can't talk about guns for way too long. You don't knock it till you try it. All right. What are some other good ones? Oh, you want to talk about Parenthood real quick?
Sure.
I think that this is one that leaps immediately to my mind, because going into parenthood, or even prior to thinking about being a father, I'm told like so many times from those who are parents, it'll change your life. It's the hardest thing. It's the most rewarding thing. My parents, my mom would always say like, you'll never understand. You won't understand until you have a kid of your own. Like the way she, would raise me or even think about me as her son. You won't understand. And you sort of just like in one ear out the other. And then the moment you have a child, at least for me, like the second that my son emerged into this world, it's a light switch. It's the whole world flipping, everything shifting, and you
cats
sort of
are living with dogs.
Cats living with dogs. Everything it's just like you will never know. It's like skydiving. You cannot explain to a person what being a parent is like. Only the experience of being a parent can you understand these things, like the love for this thing, this person that you helped create, like that love, that sort of pride when they hit their milestones, everything, all of it, the concern, the fear, the anguish, like all of that, nothing can compare, nothing can compare to the actual experience of it. Nothing comes
Nor
close.
can anything prepare you.
Nothing can prepare you. Nothing can prepare you. So I don't know, to anyone out there who's good.
Do you now have more sympathy for your parents?
I do. I absolutely do. And I'm like, I get it. I kind of get it now. I do. You have to. I can't lie to them. I have to look at them and be like, yeah, I understand now. You lie awake sometimes and you are worried over every little thing, much of which you can't control. And so you sort of, it's an exercise in letting go. But
yeah, like, why do you need me to call home after I take an airplane? That's so dumb.
Dude, I like those and he's 4.5. Like he's not even at that age. I don't know what I'm going to do when he gets into a car to drive away on his own for the first time.
The first road trip.
I don't know what it's going to be like for me. But, leading up to that are all these moments when I'm having to let go. Like he's off riding his bike and I'm, way down the road. He's skiing down a hill, like heading towards a crevasse, and I'm too far away to stop him. So I just have to hope that he turns and slows down. And like that's been every weekend for the past 3 weekends.
Oh, this isn't a metaphor.
No, this is like he's going to go into that culvert where there's nothing but rocks and water, and he's going to hit his head and drown. But then he steers himself and he slows himself down and he's like he's at the bottom of the mountain. He's going to crash into everybody and he just finds the little guy. It's like every moment leading up to that is an exercise in letting go and having faith that he's going to be okay and knowing you can't control the things you can't. But anyway.
So I think this is also where like a lot of people will get mad when you're like, you can't understand this because you haven't done it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the parenting example is good because I feel like everyone's experience as a kid when your parent is like, you won't understand till you're older. You're like, shut up.
Maybe we need a better line.
Yeah. But I'm also like feeling myself saying those kinds of old man things, right? But it's true. Like it made me mad as a kid.
Yep.
It's true. So it doesn't matter how mad I get about it. It doesn't change the fact that it's true.
The world's not fair.
Yeah. So I mean, when you feel the urge to be angry because someone has told you that you can't understand this thing unless you've tried it, like we're doing right now, like just take a step back and be like, oh, well, it's true.
Yeah. Maybe there's a better way that as parents we can impart, like we can deliver that line, like a better,
because I said so.
Yeah, because I said so, and the world's not fair. Oh, those are terrible. I'm the authority, and the world sucks. Like those are the stories that you're telling your kids, embedding in them. I think there's got to be a better way.
We should write children's books.
What would be the better line? Like you'll never know, or someday you'll know, or maybe it's just like
I think for those of you watching on YouTube, you just go like this.
Yeah.
The knowing nod.
Well, someday maybe you'll find out. Someday maybe
we'll talk about this when you're older. When you call me up and you're like, Dad, you were right.
Yeah, I think people get dogs. Couples, like before they're married, after they're married, they'll get a dog as like, we're just, we're sort of testing the waters. Like this is the first step on the way towards having a baby. And I've not owned a dog, but I've been around people who are dog owners. I've owned a cat, and maybe it is a stepping stone, but it is not that thing, man.
I mean, it's related.
It is. You're caring for this.
It shares some things in common, but it's sort of like the difference between being in a swimming pool and being thrown out of a helicopter into the ocean where there's no land in sight. Like you're in the water. I will give you that.
I don't want to dissuade.
You're totally wet. Yes.
I want to make sure. I don't want to dissuade anyone who's listening from ever having your own kid, because I have to tell you. All right, so I'll do this little spiel. Too many parents do this. I think probably becomes sickening, and it's another one of those things where if you're not a parent, you're just like, no.
All the parents are like, and all the not parents are like, don't say it, Ben, but please continue.
Here's it is the most profound experience that I've ever had in my life, is being a father. It is the most profound. One of the many reasons that I think it's incredibly rewarding is that a child, particularly a young infant and a toddler, like, they demand your attention in a way that the world doesn't. And you cannot be distracted when your toddler comes into the room. Like, they want 100% of your attention, and they pull you to the present moment, to the now, in a way that is like so spiritually rewarding, even that as it is exhausting. And I think we don't do enough of that. We are in the past, we're in the future, we're distracted by phones and technology or television shows, and you can't be that way with a kid. And it is really rewarding, and it's great practice for the rest of your day to like get focused on the now and the present and not be distracted and pulled in all these directions. It's equal parts challenging and rewarding, but that's just one of the ways that it's like, oh my God, I am zoned in on this one thing. And it's incredible.
Yes, sir. I'm like, is it a leap of faith
to have
like
a child
jumping out of an airplane?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, because it's unlike jumping out of an airplane on your first solo jump. Like, there's no real, training that you do for being a parent. That's the other piece. Like, you can take all these little classes on the actual birthing and things like that, but no one's handing you a child and saying, "Now take care of it for a few weeks, and then let's just see how you do."
Yeah, I mean, I had not originally intended to draw this parallel, but I mean, I think metaphorically, I mean, picture this, people. and you won't understand it unless you've done it. You're like literally standing at the side or back door of an airplane, and the earth is passing by beneath you, and you're traveling, I don't know what an airplane flies when you're going to jump out of it, but it's pretty fast, and the earth is moving by below you, and maybe there's some clouds, and you're like, I've seen this out of the window before, but right now there is nothing between me and the earth. And what I'm going to do next is take one step forward, and everything is going to change suddenly and dramatically. Fortunately, not forever, hopefully. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's a good metaphor for parenting, where, 5 seconds ago, things were one way. 5 seconds in the future, things are now another way.
A very another way. And it's not your life that's on the line. It's this like little helpless thing that requires 24/7 care and attention. Man, that description put me back in that airplane, getting ready to.
I mean, that's
ready to jump
a
out.
moment. Like, I mean, and for me, and I think probably anyone who does it, that moment will just be vivid. And stay with you for your entire life. So I think if you have not jumped out of an airplane, you should do it. And you should not do a tandem jump. You should do the AFF course, where they teach you how to do it.
Spend the money,
and then you jump on your own. Somebody is there that jumps next to you in case of emergency, but like,
the moment you pull that cord, they're gone.
That's true.
They let go. And the moment you pull that cord is when you find out if your chute was packed properly, or if you're going to have any sort of malfunction. And they're not there to help you with your malfunction. This is what you learn in the course, are the list of potential malfunctions. That's why. Practice. Oh my God, I remember seeing that list on the chalkboard.
That's actually a great point, and one that I did not mention, nor do I think most people think about when you're skydiving. But like, the jump and the free fall is, I mean, maybe a quarter or less of the experience, because it's over pretty fast.
Over very fast.
And then you open your canopy, and now you're a glider. And, you can steer left and right, but like, there's a whole lot of time to make bad decisions between that point and when you hit the ground. Like, how far away are you from the airport? Can you get back? Like, how hard is the wind blowing? Like, where,
I remember being so relieved when I looked up and saw that the canopy had opened correctly, that I spent like the next 45 seconds just like kicking my feet and like enjoying the view. and completely lost track of where the parachuters before me had gone, and forgot to look at the ground to find our the landing zone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was like, oh yeah, like I still need to land. And I looked, and
we're not done here.
Way over there, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to make that. I think that I was my head was in the clouds, literally and figuratively. But I was so relieved to like not still be falling towards the earth at terminal velocity.
It's pretty satisfying.
But that moment when it opens up and you are gliding is incredible. It's incredible because you're flying, you're like floating to the ground, and you feel safe at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, it doesn't feel like you're falling that fast. You're like, I'm like a butterfly.
I actually really enjoy that part. I mean, some people try to get as much free fall as they can.
Yeah, because they're crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is that part of it, but I guess for me the point is, like life, there are like two parts of that experience,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And you have to decide how much of which one that you want to have.
Sure.
So the place I used to jump in DeLand, Florida, had like the sunset jump.
Okay.
Where they would fly higher than normal at sunset. It was like the last load of the day. And what a lot of people would do, I mean, some people just get more free fall, but what I would like to do is jump out and like do a very minimal amount of free fall and then open the canopy. And then you just have like a 15-minute ride where you're just like gliding down to the earth. And it was magical.
With
it was
the sun setting on the horizon, that must have been incredible. Yeah. See, you can't know this. You will never know this until you try it, dear listener.
Right. Go do it.
Too much on our list to get through. I don't think we're going to get
a lot more things. How much more time do you guys have? I guess we should wrap it up since we've come full circle.
Wrap it up. We Maker Minute. We dropped Mike Rowe on here. I'm fairly confident that we've included Mike Rowe in the past, just because he's such a baller and he's all about getting your hands dirty.
Right. I mean, I'm sure we've used Mike Rowe before, but those previous uses as a Maker Minute were wrong. This is the correct one because he is the master of trying it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when we were trying to figure this out, I was like, who exemplifies the spirit of I am going to get in there and try that?
Yeah.
And there are probably other ones. But for me, the first one that came to mind was Mike Rowe and Dirty Jobs, which is not around anymore. But man, that's one of the... so my note that I made, are there things that you would not try? Despite the fact that you're like, I'm a person who tries things. What would you not try? And I think a lot of the jobs that Mike Rowe did, I'm like, you'd have to, I don't know. No, thank you. Strong no.
Strong no.
Under the right circumstances, if you'd like kidnapped my family or something, I would do it. But barring that, like if there's an option, I would rather not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like anything that has to do with large amounts of poop.
Amounts of poop.
Man, do I appreciate plumbers. They are saints.
I am right there with you. Well, Mike Rowe, you've done it again. You have made our Maker Minute. Jason, you've done it again. You've suffered through an hour of chatting with me, looking at this ugly long-haired mug.
Would you? I like your pandemic hair. Would you believe that I have one more thing to say?
No.
You wouldn't believe
yes,
it?
I would.
Well, you should.
Because I've lived through it.
Every time.
I've lived through it.
And this is partly self-serving and partly on topic. Please don't review products that you have not used. The end.
The end. Listener, thank you for tuning in. I'm Ben. I'm no expert.
I'm Jason. I'm no expert. And I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Bye-bye.
And you too, Ben.
And you too. Bye-bye.